Hi, this is Rachel, and I'm back for a bonus episode. I'm so thankful for all of the love and support from you watching this, and it's been so much fun seeing pictures of people trying out my recipes from the episodes. So, if you try something out, let me know on Instagram or on Twitter. And if you've enjoyed the series so far, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. And you can also click on the bell to set your notifications on YouTube. This series is called The Sago Show, where I'm exploring the roots and digging deeper into the history behind some of my favorite Filipino dishes and sweets. Today, I'm tackling two of the classic kakanin or rice cakes, Palitaw and Puto. I'm going to do the palitaw first. Let's start us off here by combining 2 cups of glutinous rice flour with 1 cup of water. You can adjust this, it just has to be a 2-to-1 ratio, and mix until you achieve a solid and maybe slightly sticky mixture. Rice seems so ubiquitous in my perception of Filipino cuisine. It's the companion to your ulam, your main dish, something that you eat on a daily basis. And we have so many different types of rice cakes: bibingka, sapin-sapin, suman, biko, and even the regional variations of the puto that I'm making later today. I've always assumed that rice has always been like that, but I was wrong. Prior to the Spanish arriving in what is now called the Philippines, rice was actually not a staple crop. Not every land was ideal for producing rice, and root vegetables like yam and taro were more of the daily staple food. Rice is a very labor-intensive crop, and it was very valuable. Professor Filomeno Aguilar at Ateneo talks about the ritualism and sacredness of rice growing in the pre-colonial era. He says that, like in other Southeast Asian countries, rice growing and rice harvesting was not just part of the social structures, but also their cosmology. They believed that spirits resided in each grain of rice, and the farmers had special rituals and even taboos surrounding the harvest. At the end of the harvest, rice cakes and rice wine would be presented to the rice deity. Professor Aguilar writes, "Rice was not a mere source of calories, but a life force that linked people to the cosmos and its potencies." And now transitioning back, we have our dough ready to shape. Take spoonfuls of dough and flatten them out. I don't really care if mine are perfectly shaped because I like them all to look a little bit different. And so upon Spanish arrival, this relationship with rice and this dynamic was, as Professor Aguilar notes, radically altered. The Spanish saw a great opportunity here to transform and optimize the rice production. They introduced plows, they introduced irrigation systems that allowed rice to grow on lands that previously and normally couldn't grow it. The Spanish also brought the structure of the Catholic Church. And this meant that overall, the magic and ritual of rice harvesting started to go away. I do want to emphasize here that individual farming families would maintain these beliefs. And in this time, there is resistance to colonization. Yet by the late 1700s, Manila's port to world trade was opened and rice export began. And back to the palitaw, we want to use a deep vessel with boiling water, and we're going to drop in the palitaw one by one, making sure that they don't stick to the bottom. Boil them until they float to the top, and then take them out of the water. It's that easy. And perhaps one might think, well, isn't modernization a good thing here? Since the Spanish brought this technology, they were able to grow way more rice, and this did allow the Philippines to start commodifying it. But let's look at who owned the rice fields at the time. Spanish friars, Spanish officials, Chinese traders. These were the ones who benefited the most from the ability to export rice. And rice became a large source of wealth for these elites, while the rituals and reverence for rice harvesting had gone away. Next, I'm going to quickly toast a 1/4 cup of sesame seeds over medium heat for 3 to 4 minutes and then place them in a dish. Now I'm all set up to assemble. So we have the cooked palitaw, coconut flakes, toasted sesame seeds, and you can't really see it, but just regular sugar. So I'll take a palitaw and then kind of totally struggle with it and struggle with pressing it into the coconut. Sesame seed, and then sugar last. I remember really liking this part as a child because I loved assembly lines, and I don't really know why. In second grade, we practiced doing assembly lines with these paper donuts. If my friends are watching, do you remember that? I don't know why that was a part of our curriculum, really. And once you've dressed all of the palitaw, that's it. It's so easy and tasty, and just as fun to eat as they are to make. And if palitaw was rice cakes on easy mode, this is rice cakes on hard mode. Next up, I'm gonna prepare puto using rice flour. You might see some recipes that use regular bread flour. I'm gonna use rice flour here to go along with the theme. To start, combine 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of sugar. Whisk this together and then add in 1 egg, 250 ml of evaporated milk, 1 tablespoon melted butter, and mix this together. Now we're going to gradually add this into 2 cups of rice flour. Mix until well combined. And while I'm doing that, I'll note that it's common in other Asian cultures to have ritual practices surrounding rice. In Vietnam and in Japan, there are rituals to present rice cakes on New Year celebrations. For me, as a Filipino American, I never really knew about this indigenous history of practices surrounding rice. And in the process of the Spanish giving rice harvesting an extreme makeover, it ended up eclipsing the culture and the beliefs of the indigenous people whose practices they were overhauling. And I'm not saying that they didn't resist, but I am saying that there's probably a reason that many of us might not know this history. And after I've combined this, I'm going to make 2 types of puto, ube and vanilla. So I'll separate out my batters and add 1 teaspoon of vanilla to the left one and 1 teaspoon of ube extract to the right one. Next, add a 1/4 cup of shredded cheese to each of the batters. As you may know from previous episodes, I don't have a sweet and normal steamer setup, but what I do have is a metal trivet wrapped in foil and with a bunch of holes just punched through to allow steam through. I also have these silicone baking cups. In the opening lines of one of the articles that I've linked below by Eunice Barbara Novio, she writes, "What if our beliefs turn out not to be true? What if we were conditioned to believe something because we are a colonized people who have yet to find out who or what we are?" In my journey and in my path through all of this research and discovery, I've been thinking about this a lot. And this leads me to my parting questions. What can we learn about the lands of Indigenous people that we occupy now? And what can we learn about the Indigenous people in the Philippines? What Indigenous tradition, culture, and rights are being taken away right now? And what are we doing to stop it from happening? To finish up here, you'll want a steamer lid that has a cloth on the cover so that the lid doesn't drip onto the puto. You'll want to check on the timing and calibrate this for your own setup, but I steamed over a low simmer for a total of 15 minutes or until a toothpick came out clean. As a final touch, I like to melt a small rectangle of cheese on top, which makes this have such a special place in my heart. And here is the final product. Know that these are best consumed the day of or maybe the day after, but they are tasty any time of day from breakfast to dessert, and they're great for sharing. I'm excited to say that I'm working on season 2. I've got some new utensils, a new space, and as always, some interesting learnings to share. So give me a follow on Instagram and on Twitter, and if you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time on The Sago Show. Salamat.